I have been here, yes, 6 years, but my background is on the what we call the private side. So I was an entrepreneur starting in 2000. And from 2000 to 2017, I focused on sales, marketing, business planning as my what I was doing. I was mostly working with startups and other small firms, helping them grow their business, usually doing commission only or some form of monthly verse and commission strategy. I also had a food business for a while. I was in the bakery business, and that really got me exposed to government contracting on a much bigger scale. I work with a lot of different large primes, selling my product, and with many different state agencies here in California. So let's jump into the agenda. So, what is a capability statement? I'm going to go into great details about that. Who is your audience? This is really important, and I'll go into more details, but understanding who your audience is when you're looking at how to market and network within the government is very important. And what is an effective power pitch, right? How do you make a first impression, an introduction, in a way that is effective for what you're trying to achieve at that moment, and how that then transcends into you being effective with the follow up. Because in the end, it is always going to be about the follow up, right? You're not going to generate a sale right there at the event, but how you present yourself and then how that follow up goes is really important. The information that just doing a quick disclosure, the information provided is relevant and up to date to the best of our knowledge. And things do happen, and um, things that are beyond our control may change overnight. And so, just a quick just disclosure. Next slide, please. Okay, so marketing. Marketing the company versus marketing yourself. I'm not sure of everybody's background in terms of how long you've been in business, what you did before you started your company. So I'm just going to attack this from the standpoint of just giving you really solid, basic marketing principles and strategies that you can utilize on a daily basis. And the first principle is marketing really is the center of your business universe. It is not your products, it's not your services, it's not your background. Marketing is what drives customers to want to pay attention to you. How you market your company, how you market yourself or your team will leave lasting impressions that will produce sales opportunities in the near future and long lasting. So when a company starts off, I've always advised them when you're starting your company, whether you're selling to the government or selling in the private side, 80% of the work you do in the beginning has to be marketing and sales development, because without the marketing, you don't have an opportunity to sell, right? You don't have that opportunity to do all the other things your company wants to do. So I'm going to really get into this, but marketing really is important, and many companies don't spend enough time and energy on the marketing side of their business. Also, it's a learned skill. This is something that you have to work at and get better at and get better at and get better at. It's not an art, right? Just because you might be a great I'll pick on graphic designers, right? Let's say you're a graphic designer. That's a that's sort of an art combined with a lot of skill, of course. Um, but if you're in construction, if you're in landscaping, if you're in manufacturing, the the part of that doesn't come natural. It doesn't come easy, and it's a learned skill. There's certain just basic core skills that um, are part of marketing that I'm going to talk about and that you can implement and always utilize. Just understand everybody can do marketing as a professional because it's not something that you're born with, or same with sales, right? It's not an art. We all can be expert in marketing and sales if you work at it. And overall, building trust. So, what marketing is trying to do is you're trying to establish yourself as either great at what you do, or an expert, or better than the competition, so that you're pre-selling to that market you want to do business with. And we'll get into that more of that as we move forward with our capability statement. So, next slide, please. And again, I'll just remind you, if you have questions about what we talk about, please put them in the not chat, but the other one. I forgot which one Taylor said it was. But yeah, and then I'll go into more detail if you have any questions. All right, marketing overview, right? So again, if you're starting your company or if you've been around for a couple years, but you haven't been putting this into practice, 80% of your energy needs to be on marketing so that you have the opportunity to do the business you want to do. Marketing includes the marketing research, establishing the relationships, and conveying your value. So when we talk about doing marketing research, we want to narrow down who you want to do business with, especially when we're talking about the government, because the government includes the federal government, which is the biggest buyer in the world. It includes all of the states in the United States. It includes all of the cities, all of the counties, all of the universities, all of the school districts in the United States. So you can't reasonably well try to do business and try to market to all of that. So you have to focus, you have to shrink it down, something more manageable, something more niche and specific. And you do that with research instead of just saying, "Oh, I'll just do business with the the 10 local cities within 100 miles and the three largest counties in California." I'm just giving you examples of what I have heard people do. They just make assumptions and move forward instead of asking really good questions. Why should I do business with these cities or counties? Or are they purchasing what I sell? Or is this other city or county or university spending more money on my product or service? So that basic research will help you identify where you should focus your attention. And then once you do that, then you start the process of establishing relationships and conveying your value. And one of the great tools that we provide our clients, just to remind people about the services that we offer, is we have those tools available to help our clients do marketing research. Okay, next slide, please. So we're going to get into details about our capability statement. The image you see is our template, right? This is what our template looks like. We will provide you the links later on in my presentation on how to download them. But I'm going to go into detail with every section that you see, but just to give you a quick glimpse of this is what it's going to look like. However, if you don't like this template, just understand that there are dozens and dozens of other templates available on the internet that you can download. All right, next slide, please. So let's go over the sections that you just saw, right? You've got your logo, very important. You want to establish who you are. Introduction, core competencies is another way of saying exactly what it is you are selling. What makes you different? Not going to try to say that word for whatever reason. It's my nemesis, and I cannot say that word correctly. I always tongue tie it. Past performances, your key clients, company snapshot, industry codes, and we'll discuss next versus UNSPSC codes, your different certifications, and of course your contact info. Imagery is just, you want to use pictures that convey your professionalism. I'll go into more about that when we get to that slide, but the images can be very important depending on what your product or service is. Next slide. Okay, so let's start about the introduction. It's normally at the very top, but I've seen introductions in different ways presented. Somebody in construction or construction or manufacturing might present their capability statements a little different than somebody who is in, like I said, graphic design or the arts, right? But basically, it's a short paragraph describing your business. I would say no more than 5 sentences. 3 to 4 is great, but no more than 5. You want to be very specific. You want to be clear and concise. Know what we call fluff. You're not going to use fluff words to try to highlight who you are and what you do here, right? Right. This concise statement is giving the reader, which is going to be your contracting officer mostly, but I'll go into who these are designed for. But you want to let the reader know who you are and why they should care. Think about that when you're writing it, right? Who you are and why they should care. You don't want to repeat what they're going to read already in the other sections of your capability statement. So don't just go over your core competencies and what makes you different again. Say something unique. Talk about maybe your mission. Talk about um, what do you stand for? That's a good way to present it. What do you stand for and why that's important to the reader? Next slide. All right, go back one. There we go. All right, capability statement sections, the core competencies. One of the most important sections because this is telling the reader exactly what you are offering. And we're going to focus on government. So what you're offering that government agency that you're sending your capability statement to. It is a bulleted list. It's not a paragraph. It's not a sentence. Um, the only exceptions to that I've seen that look really well is when you have it's like consulting, right? Consulting services or something that's more service based. And then there's bullets under that. So you might be management training. And then under that, you might say leadership development, workshops, something else that is a part of management training. That's a good way of showing it. But for the most part, you make a very specific bulleted list of your products and services that is very clear to the reader what you're offering. Also, you want to make sure if you've got 4 or 5 different products you're selling, you can look at it as what gives you the biggest profit or what is your greatest value. You put that first in the list. So that list has a hierarchy that you create. And then customizing your core competencies based on the potential client needs. So this is good because this tells you, for example, this May 15th event, when you meet with a contracting officer or a program manager or that government individual who's representing that agency, and you get an opportunity to talk about what they need, what their needs are, you can then come back and customize your capability statement just for that agency, right? You don't need to, or you should not create a capability statement that is a catch-all for everybody. There's there's there is value in taking the time to create multiple capability statements geared for specific audiences. And I talk a lot about this in my one-on-ones that I do with my clients, right? You want to make sure that that cap statement is specific for who you want to do business with. And sometimes it means making changes to your core competencies or your past performance so that it highlights a unique a unique thing about your company that you know they care about. We can get into more of that if you have any questions, but let's go on to the next slide, please. All right, what makes you different? This is a section that I think gives my clients the biggest challenge to write because initially they seem to want to put a full paragraph or they list 8 or 9 things that make them different. And that's not what the reader is looking for in this section. You want 1 or 2 clear things that are very specific that sets you apart from your competition. And when you think about that, it's really difficult, right? I don't care what industry you're in, it's difficult to come up with something that makes you clearly unique from the other firms out there that you're competing against for contracts or opportunities. And so you have to really give it some thought and really put some energy into what separates you. And it's not going to be 5, 6, 7 things. It's going to be 1 or 2 clear differences. It might be very small, but it's still something you want to hit on that makes you different. It could be you were in this industry for 20 years. You started this company a year or 2 years ago, but you have 20 years of expertise in this industry. It could be that you have a very strong team, right? You put together a team of 4 or 5, 6 individuals that work so very well together, and that combined experience gives you, you know, an edge against your competition. It could be your product is better, but also is on par or even a little cheaper in terms of the cost than your competitor. Make it 1 or 2 very core differences that the reader can really hit on and memorize. If you list 6, 7 things, it just blurs and there's nothing different about you. Next slide, please. The most important section, past performances and experience. So let me stop and just kind of give an overview. When doing business with the government, when you look at what they care about, contracting officers, the government agencies, I don't care if it's again a school district all the way to the U.S. Navy, they don't want to be your first client, right? They want to know, who have you done business with before? Now, it could be in the private sector. That's perfectly acceptable, right? If you have experience in the private sector and you haven't sold it into the government, by all means, you're gonna talk about that. as best you can your past performance in the private sector, but have some experience. Now, a lot of my clients, they'll talk about, well, I just started the company, but I did do what I'm doing now for another company for 5, 10, 15, whatever those years are. We can list that. We just have to put it down in a different way. But your past performance is important. They want to know that you are a professional. They want to know that they can trust that you, if they hire you, you're going to be able to do the work the way you say you're going to do the work. And the only way they can judge that is looking to see what you've done in the past. So in your past performance, you want to include, who you worked for, the agency or company, dates, brief description. Now, this description, you want to kind of let them know, a good example is we provided XYZ services for a 6-month period, and they were able to achieve XYZ, right? Your services allow the agency to save money, get the job done under budget, you know, something that just gives the reader a better understanding of that work you did for that company or agency. Talk about how much you were paid, even if it's on a smaller scale, but it's still good to put that information out there. We're going to go into more of this, but let's jump into the next slide. So customizing. This is another area where you can clearly customize your capability statement. So quick example, let's say you have, 10, 15 past performances that you could put down. But which ones of those will align with the kind of work you're trying to generate from that agency you want to do business with? If it's California DMV, if it's, I don't know, janitorial, um, and the scale and size of that work is 4 or 5 thousand square feet. Do you have other work that's similar to that 4 or 5 thousand square feet that you've done on the private side? That's what you highlight, right? Things that are similar to what you want to go after, if you can. Listing them in order of when your work was done, by size. Of course, the largest contract you want to highlight at the top. And then here's the part about the experience, right? If it's outside the company, you just label it executive team experience. That way you're able to properly and professionally highlight the work you've done, but letting the reader know this is from your experience working with another company versus this company that you own did the work. And it's perfectly fine to do it that way, just as long as you state executive team experience. And if there's any questions, then I'll be glad to answer those at the end. Next slide, please. So key clients, a little different than past performance, right? Key clients just basically means if you have an opportunity, if you have done work for companies that are well known or have some kind of position in the market space and you want to really highlight that, then yeah, use a logo to really express that. Next slide. Company snapshot. This is a brief, quick thing, and the main things that people include in a company snapshot is, of course, when the company was established. The CAGE and UEI, if you don't know, that is sam.gov. That is federal. So if you want to do business with the federal government, you have to be listed as a vendor with the federal government on sam.gov. When you do that, you are given a UEI, unique entity ID, and a CAGE code. For the state of California, if you want to do business with the state of California, then you're going to go to Cal eProcure, and they will give you a bidder ID. So though that information would be listed in your company snapshot, whether or not you accept credit and purchase cards. And by the way, you always want to say yes, right? If you're not, but most transactions with government that are under, let's say, 10 to at the most 20,000 at the most, but a lot of it is 10,000 or under, they will use some type of credit or purchase card to make those purchases. So if you're open and you want to go after that kind of business, then let them know, yes, you do accept credit and purchase cards. Contract vehicles, as it says, if you're not familiar with GSA, that is a federal organization, General Services Administration. The companion to that on the California side is the CMAS, California Multiple Award Schedule. Blank Purchase Agreement, a BPA, is also federal. So those are three examples of a contract vehicle. It just means if you're able to get the government to give you a contract that says, we will buy your products and services at a set price for a set number of years, usually between 3 to 5 years, that's a contract vehicle. If you have one of those, you definitely want to put it in your capability statement. And then finally, be specific if you do serve a geographic area. If you cover the United States, then you can, of course, say that also. But, this is really about if you cover a specific territory, let them know that so that they're clear in where they can work with you. Next slide, please. Industry codes. So I said I would go into this a little bit of detail. Next codes. I don't know if everybody here is very familiar with next codes and how they differ from UN SPSC codes. So next codes are the United States attempt to create industry-specific classifications for products and services. So 5-digit code, 5-6-digit code, and the federal government, many cities, many counties, and most large firms, what we call primes, utilize next codes to help them identify what they sell and to find companies that either provide a service or sell products that they need. So next codes are very important in terms of identifying what you sell to government and to primes. Now, the UN is United Nations Products Service Codes, and they are worldwide used. So California decided to go with the UN SPSC codes primarily because it's the fifth largest economy in the world. They do business all over the world, and so they saw value in utilizing the UN SPSC codes versus next codes. So if you only want to do business with the state of California, then you don't really need to have the next codes. But if you're trying to do business with both, then yes, it's a good idea to include next codes and the UN SPSC codes on your capability statement. You don't want to just put the number. You want to put the number and then the description to the right of it. This is also very important. This is a reason why many of my clients have 2 or 3 or more capability statements, because the next codes and the UN SPSC codes run into 10, 15, or 20. They have multiple lines or they have multiple departments within their company. You don't want to, and you truly cannot put all that information on one cap statement. So you separate it out, right? If you're in the facilities management space, and that includes fixing the plumbing within that facilities management and fixing elevators. It also includes janitorial and landscaping. You don't want to try to combine and push all of that information on the one cap statement. And at the same time, you're going to have so many next codes. So you separate it out. As this says, oh, I might want to speed up a little bit. So focus on what you really excel at, or as I say, make multiple cap statements and make sure you are marketing them directly to who cares about that, right? So this is where the marketing really comes in strong. Uh, next slide, please.
And sorry, Thomas, I wasn't meaning to rush you. That was an
Oh,
accident.
okay. All right, certifications. Extremely valuable, extremely important, but it's not a guarantee for contracts. And I say that because I have a lot of clients that when we meet and we talk about certifications, they say, hey, I've been certified for 6 months. When am I going to get some work? And I have to reel them in and let them know that there are a lot of other firms that are certified. It's competitive, and we still have to do the hard work of marketing, networking, building relationships, and then getting the opportunities to present. But you definitely want to get certified and put those certifications on your capability statement. As you can see, you've got your federal certifications, your state, and then you have the private certifications. If you have those, yeah, you can also put those on there. Also, licenses and other non federal or state certifications should go on your cap statement. Next slide, please. And the other good information that you need to have, of course, is your contact information, right? You want them to reach out to you. You want them to go to your website and check you out. You want them to go to your LinkedIn page if you have one. You want them to use your capability statement to learn as much as they can about you and your company and what you do. So make sure this information is correct. If you have a link, make sure the links work. Um, Branding your company with a company branded email is important, right? It is important. If you're in a space, in an industry, and many of the companies that, if I'm a contracting officer and I get 10 capability statements, and seven of them, when I look at their email and website, it matches, right? It's uh, thomasburnsconsulting.com, and it's tburns at thomasburnsconsulting.com as my email. That's a more professional email than a Yahoo, a Hotmail, or a Gmail. Doesn't mean you won't get business, because I have a lot of clients that do get business even though they have a Yahoo or Gmail account. But just remember, you're always going up against other firms, and you want to put your best foot forward. So if you can brand your email with your company, that's a good thing to do. And also have a website and make sure that website is professional. Next slide, please. And finally, imagery, right? Now, I will say this. I don't think it's a good idea to just grab images from the internet and just throw them on a capability statement to fill space. If you have images that truly are your images that represent your company or represent your team, then yes, that's a good idea. But don't just put something on there to fill a space. Be intentional and make sure they do a great job because they really convey your value and your company. I think that's all I need to say about that. Just next slide. I think the next slide then should have the links. It might be the one after this. So yeah, so it'll be there. So go back, yeah, right here. No, this one, yeah, perfect. So for your capability statement, who are these going to? Right? That's the main question. Okay, I've finished my capability statement. Who am I sending it to? So you're sending it to, contracting officers and buyers are kind of synonymous, the same thing. Program managers are different, though. Program managers are those individuals who are technically over the buyers and they tell the buyers what they need, right? A program manager says it's time to update the organization's website and their market materials. And so then the contracting officer is charged with finding a company to do that. Small business specialists, their job is to help their agency that they work for meet their goals of doing business with the small business community, while at the same time connecting with the small business community to learn about their products and services and bringing the two together. Normally, the small business specialist is not in the position of a buyer, but every now and then I do see that a small business specialist is also a buyer, but that's rare. So that's the bulk of the audience. The other one could be you could utilize your cap statement for sending to large companies. I know in the construction industry, the estimator likes receiving a capability statement along with maybe a list of your, maybe not your rates, but other information that might not be on a cap statement. So yes, the different agencies and the large primes are an ideal candidate for receiving your capability statement. Next slide, please. So this is just going over the audience in terms of when you create your capability statement, right? When you're looking at how to put it together, the words you use, it's important to be very concise, specific, so that it doesn't look like you're just putting a bunch of fluff together. Sometimes less is more, depending on how long you've been in business, depending on what industry you're in, and who the audience that you're going after. Just be intentional with your wording with your cap statement and have somebody else review it before you start sending it out. I made that mistake so many times when I was a solo entrepreneur, and I didn't think to let somebody else other than myself review what I had just written. You don't see all of your mistakes. Having another person's opinion is always helpful. Next slide. So, okay, our free template. Again, as I said, we believe it's a great capabilities statement template. However, there are others, and there are people who want to hire a designer to help them, perfectly fine. There are other templates on the internet, but I think the next slide will give you the link, and this whole presentation will be available. Is that right, Taylor?
Yes, it'll be sent to all attendees, usually within a week, although I will say that our event coordinator who usually handles that is currently out sick, so it could be a little bit of a delay, but usually we give ourselves 1 week to get it sent out.
Thank you. Yeah, next slide. And again, that's the link in it, so you'll get this. Let's keep going. Okay, so some of the key takeaways. The how critical the marketing research is, because again, there's too many opportunities available to do a good job of building relationships and marketing to everybody. So you've got to have the concept less is more, and focus on a specific section. And how do you do that is with market research. The capability statement is the first document they will see of your company 90% of the time. So it's important that it's professional and attractive and insightful to the reader so that they keep it and utilize it when they need it. And if you need help with all this, this is one of the things that we spend a lot of our energy doing with our clients, is helping them do the research and create a professional capability statement. Next slide. I think we're going to jump into that's right, the effective power pitch. So for this next
And,
slide.
and
Hmm,
Thomas, really quick, since we're jumping into the next section, just a time check, we're at 10:50.
got it. So for this, really important, right? When you attend the event on the 15th, this information is really powerful to really help you be intentional with your networking, right? There's a lot of ways you can approach this, but developing a pitch, a simple 30 to 45-second introduction, or as we call it, a power pitch, will help you to just kickstart that conversation so it leads in a direction that you want it to lead. You want to take control of the conversation in a way that's effortless, that's not controlling per se, but is still you're making it happen in a very constructive, positive way. Next slide. So here are the things that need to be in that 45-second quick power pitch or initial presentation. Type of company and service that identifies your company, right? Your past performance or your key clients. What sets you apart? Share information about your company, what makes you different from others. Again, you're controlling that initial hello. You're controlling that initial meeting to ensure that you have a two-way engagement. You also want to collect information about their needs so that you have something to follow up on. Next slide. So for a perfect high-level power pitch, this is what should be in that 45 seconds. You're answering the question of what is the value of your company or your product? What proof do you have to support that value? What is your difference? What sets you apart from others? And when we talk about how to engage in two-way communication, it means you end that with asking them a question. Right? So you're continuing that conversation by you give your power pitch, and then you ask a question that is engaging so that you continue that two-way conversation. And then you want to follow up with next steps. Next slide. So again, brief introduction, describe your value, provide proof of that value, quickly highlight something that sets you apart. You're taking control by asking a follow-up question, and then what are the next steps that you want to accomplish? Next slide, please. Again, know your audience. So you're attending this event on the 15th. The list of agencies is already listed. You know who's going to be there. It is a great idea to do some research by simply going to that agency's website. Make sure you understand what their mission is, right? If it I don't remember the list off the top of my head, but I think one of them was the military department, just as an example. Go to their website, understand what their mission is, help see if you can figure out if they have highlighted that they do utilize your product or service. If so, which department within that agency? Learn as much as you can before the 15th. Come prepared. Know your audience. Communicate clearly and concisely, of course. Of course, being positive, which means um, don't talk about cost, don't talk about anything negative. Be very positive in your delivery of your pitch and in your entire conversation. The one that's hard, the one that most people get caught up on is number four. You're nervous, so you end up going off script and you end up rambling, and that happens to everybody. Trust me, it really does. And the only way to not let that happen is to practice your pitch. Practice it, practice it, practice it with as many people as you can. Make it fun. The more you practice it, the more this becomes natural. It's just a regular conversation. It doesn't just happen. You don't just write it down, read it to yourselves 5, 6 times, and you're ready to go. No, you really got to practice it. Next slide. Useful tips. Listening is really a powerful tool to gain respect and attention. In the world of marketing and sales, the better you are at listening to your potential client or prospect, you're able to utilize that information that they share with you at a later time to hopefully generate a meeting or a sale. So, out of all of these tips here, listening is very, very important. Leave them wanting more, and of course, bring your business cards and your capability statement. Next slide. And this is our team. I believe this is the final slide, or we're ready to get into questions.
Thank you, Thomas. Yes, this is just a picture of our team of procurement specialists here. They're spread out all over our service area and beyond. So if you do work with our program, you'll be assigned to one of these people. Um, I do just want to mention a couple of other upcoming events or trainings that we have. We've already talked about the 2026 Northern California Procurement Fair happening in Redding on May 10th. And then we also have a Subcontracting 101 webinar on May 21st. This is a great one if you're new to government contracting. It's a really good place to start out with city, county, and subcontracting opportunities as a way to build that past performance before becoming a prime contractor. Um, and then contracting certifications for small businesses. This will go over all of the main socioeconomic certifications in government contracting, such as women-owned small business, veteran-owned small business, HubZone 8A, small business, etc. That's on May 26th. Okay, questions. And it looks like, yeah, we have a few minutes and I see some good questions in the chat or in the Q&A box, excuse me. I'll go ahead and read those. Is a capability statement a standard document for government buyers? If so, is it more of a marketing document or a formal document needed to submit a bid?
Oh, it is definitely a marketing document. And it is very common. In fact, the government created the format for a capability statement. They wanted the business community to submit something to them that they can clearly read and understand in one page that tells the buyers what you do and why they should care. So it is clearly a marketing document.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of both, right? It's a marketing document, but it is very standardized. So, like these sections we're talking about today, this isn't just us coming up with these as what we think is a good idea. This is the standard that agencies want to see these exact sections, this exact information, and it's a very common document that's used. Okay, some contracts do not permit you to use their logo of the entity you are doing business with. Do you have any other suggestions? And before I give this one to Thomas, I'll
Hmm.
give my statement as the program director. This is a really contested question. It's a really tricky one. Technically, it's against the law, especially for federal government agencies, to use a federal government agency logo without their express written permission. Um, However, it's kind of standard that people use logos on capability statements of agencies. So we can't really advise one way or the other because technically, it is illegal to do so unless they specifically give you explicit permission, but we see that most people do. So, Thomas, do you have anything to add to that?
I would just add, not only is it put on capability statements, but I see it prevalent on websites. I see it so prevalent on websites. If a company is focused on doing business with the government, they will quick, fast, in a hurry have that agency that they've done business with. Whether it's one sale or whatever, they got that logo on there. We did business with the Army. We did business with GSA. Yeah. So, but in terms of private companies, I haven't really seen an issue if you did business with some large private company. I haven't seen an issue with putting their logo on a capability statement. But again, what's more important is listing the past performance versus the logo. So if there's a question, put it on the past performance and don't, you can leave the logo off of there.
Okay. Can we please get a list of exhibitors and agencies that will be in Reading on May 15th? Some of them are listed on the marketing materials for the event. So there's some listed on the flyer, on the registration webpage. It's hard because it's a constantly evolving thing where we're trying to get more and more exhibitors. I can tell you that there's around 20, I believe, currently. Lots and lots of state agencies, some prime contractors, and a couple of federal agencies. If you want, you feel free to send me an email and I can get the list of the exact ones for you if you're wanting that. And I'll put my email in the chat. Okay. Can you please confirm the date, May 10th or May 15th? Please repeat what is on the 15th. Okay, let's go back here.
Yeah, I did see that too. It said
Was it on two different?
yeah.
Says here May 15th. I can easily go, if you go to our Apex website, it'll have for sure the right date there because it's the registration page for the event. I would look it up right now, but I'm fearful that I'm gonna really mess with the Zoom situation happening, so I don't want to exit the
I think
the
the date
speaker.
at the bottom was the incorrect date.
I think
Yeah.
it's the fifth. I think it's the fifth. Actually, you know what? I know it's the 15th
Yeah.
that I'm
Yeah.
through it. Yeah, it's the 15th. Sorry about that confusion. Okay. Okay, so can you, yeah, so NorCal, NorCal Procurement Fair in Reading on May 15th.
Yes.
What time are we at? We're a little bit over time at the moment. I'll just do this one last one. If I am headquartered in Southern California and I have a business up north, do you help or my local Apex? Um, yeah, there is definitely a Southern California Apex. If you have a specific reason why you want to work with our center instead of that one, let us know, and usually we can accommodate that or work together with the SoCal Apex. Okay. And with that, I think we're good for today. Thank you all so much for your time. I hope this was helpful. You should be receiving a evaluation survey via email sometime after this event. If you can, please just take a minute to fill that out. It's really helpful for our program. We're a nonprofit, and so we report these surveys to our funders. It helps us be able to better serve you all and let our funders know how we're doing. So again, thank you, and please feel free to reach out to Thomas or I moving forward.
Thank you very much, you guys.